morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, hello and good morning. I don't know what to tell you. With technology this morning, things seem to have gone sideways. Oh, there's Mr. Beaver. I don't know what was happening, but there he is now. Weird, strange places this morning.
I am in the production studio.
And that's
not
fine.
The regular link, so I'm not going to touch a button.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You're here. That's all that matters. I cannot explain to you why the links I sent you weren't working.
But
No
this
idea.
is like a whole different thing. Like the first one would just send me to a window that looked like our regular window, but didn't have the place like to log in. And then you sent me the next one, and it would be fine. This one sent me to the login page to the production studio, and then when I log in, it says you are going to enter your production, like your name is already there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I can't explain what's going on. There's been strange technological things all week.
Holy crap. It's okay. I'll do the intro, but we'll talk on this because there's some juju happening here somewhere. Good morning. Hello, kids, and welcome to season 4 and episode number 489 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Cryer Media Network. Yeah. Today, recording day is Friday. I love Fridays. October 11th, 2024. And I think it's going to be a nice day here at the Beaver Lodge, although it has gotten really cool. I think it got down to 3 Celsius last night. So again, a quick slide down for the last little bit. A big thank you goes to our podcast's founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health today?
Well, it's not great. Yesterday was terrible. I didn't sleep at all the night before. Last night I didn't get much sleep either. So yeah, it's not great right now. It really isn't. There's a million different things going on in my brain and my life right now, and yeah, I'm off the rails at the moment, but that's fine. I'm here. I'll do a show and I'll give you my best.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, my friend.
It happens.
I'm sending you a big hug from here.
Thanks.
Hopefully we'll have some fun today. That'll help. Kids, so yeah, when I was saying some juju, this stuff has been happening with the login, and like let's just say all in the last 3 days. The other night when I went to the curling arena, there's a lady there named Jackie. She makes some incredible Thai food, so we have that like service in our kitchen, and I always order from her. She knows how gluten-free. Most of the stuff is gluten-free anyway. But there's certain things that she has to make a change on. So I ordered my dish, went to play my game, came back, got my dish. We're just chatting away. I ate the first bite. There's something interesting about this texture. It's like there's like some crispy or crunchy around Gee, wonder how she did that. Because she must have maybe used some rice flour or whatnot. And then I taking more, and then I get the second bite of chicken, and it's like so crispy, and it's like, because there was a time before the allergy got bad that I was eating wheat. I remember texture. It's like this brings back memories. so, so I went to the kitchen, and turns out she had a new staff person that did not understand that the thing was supposed to be gluten-free. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, here we go. Looking for Benadryl reactant, waiting to see if I'm going to have anaphylactic shock. And I guess in all that hubbub and excitement, well, I left my phone at the curling. It was like, I might have to go to the hospital. So yesterday I went back to fetch it, which is why I didn't get your message that you sent before the show.
Okay.
You're not going to be on. So I'm sitting here waiting. And I'm thinking, okay, I guess I should start the show because the phone was still at the curling arena. Then last night, I go out with my friend Erin, who's absolutely lovely. I adore her. And she listens. So, hello, love. And I have my glasses on my head. I walk from the laneway into the car. She sees the glasses on my head, so I have the glasses in the car. We park literally right next to the restaurant. Like there's like 7 feet of walking right next to the restaurant. So I didn't go up and down the street. In the restaurant, we have our meal. We get out of the restaurant. We drive a little bit to a dessert place. Same thing. Park literally 6 feet from it. Went in, and I get to the dessert place. I'm like, did I not have my glasses? So I look in the car. My glasses are not there. I go back to the restaurant. There was no sign of my glasses. But I had the glasses in the car when I left, and I literally walked only 12 feet outside. There's no glasses on the side of the curb. Nothing's been stopped. They just literally vanished into thin air.
Well,
No,
just bizarre.
right into the Twilight Zone. It's not like I ran. It's not like we went dancing. It's not like I was like doing this. They were like on my head and gone.
And I have no explanation.
I know. Like, and all this has happened in 3 days. Like, it all just like pours out. There's something weird. There's some weird energy going on because for me, that always happened. It happens that way. It's like all the good stuff happens in a chunk. The bad stuff happens in a chunk. And just the really what the stuff all happens in a chunk. But yeah, that's an allergy scare, a misplaced phone, and glasses that have vanished, and then everything in Restream being all weird. Yesterday, when I did the show, for some reason, all the sort of wallpaper behind was all the Dean Blundell show's wallpaper, even though I went into the file folder and like picked our thing. Couldn't find out how to change it. But it's like, hey, we gave you some promo. The other time it was a Mercedes show. So I was like, it was like, okay, well, it's a good show too. So hey, watch it. But yeah, it's weird. I never know where that thing is, where that skin, I guess we would call it, is to have the background for our show.
Down at the bottom usually.
Yeah.
You have to scroll all the way down.
Well, there was one like for the countdown and stuff like that. I found that one and I clicked it. But then, like, for example, like when I'm about to sign off the show, this, if you don't time it just right, you see the thing. And it's like, it just reverts back. That's like, I have no clue. Okay.
Been a weird tech week. 5 years ago today, exactly 5 years ago to this day, right around, well, actually a little bit earlier, this is what I was doing. I was at the Taj Mahal.
Very nice.
In India, 5 years ago today. Wandering around, and I thought, I didn't know if it was appropriate to wear shorts, so I put jeans on that day. I just thought I should wear long pants because I don't know that the appropriateness thereof. But yeah, I thought, got a couple of, this is my Crocodile Dundee style photo right here. I'll show you this. It's kind of funny, I think. For those of you who remember Crocodile Dundee,
Oh, yes.
point,
The
double point,
point.
the double point to what you're standing in front of. So that's me at the Taj Mahal in India 5 years ago today, which is kind of mind blowing to think that was 5 years ago. Yeah, it was just before the whole world shut down. Because it was, well, like I said, October. I was there during Thanksgiving. I went to the Canadian ambassador's home for a large fall ball, I guess you would call it,
Mhm.
when they have it's the ball season for all of the embassies starts right around now. And I was, because my friend worked for the embassy, worked for the worked at the embassy actually on the Canadian consulate, which is the largest Canadian embassy in the world. Is in New Delhi, India. I
Okay.
probably didn't know that, but
I
yeah,
did not know.
it's the largest compound in the world. The largest Canadian compound in the world in any other nation is in New Delhi, India, and it's huge. It's massive. It's beautiful too. Anyway, the each embassy hosts a diplomatic ball, and it always happens around this time, and it starts with the Canadian embassy. So each year, each embassy tries to outdo each other, and it was quite something. The food, the drink, they had live bands, they had a giant LED video wall. It was amazing. It was a really good time, and I was there with my friend Sasha. If I can find, I'm looking for the photo. I can't remember. Yeah, did we go? I can't remember if the ball was before we went to Agra to see the Taj Mahal or after. Anyway, I'll see if I can find it and I'll show you a picture of us there. We were having a good time. It was a great night.
Excellent. Wow. That's pretty cool. So I went to an ambassadorial event in India.
Yeah,
That's
kind of
pretty
cool,
cool.
right?
I've been to a couple in Ottawa. There was a time I actually dated someone who was in the diplomatic corps, so I got to see a little bit what that was like. Um, I don't know how they do it. Seriously,
A
it's
lot of
like
patience.
365 days a year, and about like 280 of them to 302, you're at some function or some event.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
And at most of the functions and the events, it's the same people as was at the 300 functions
Hmm.
and events before, because it's the
Yeah.
same diplomatic corps. I mean, there's only so much small talk one human can make, especially since it's been like a full, 26 hours since I saw you last,
Hmm.
and I had 8 hours sleep and 8 hours of work outside this evening function. Not much new happened. Sorry for me to relate or shit. It must get so boring after a
It, it
while.
it can, yeah, because it becomes very routine and exhausting over time. But
Because you think, right, this, ambassadors and all this country and, these dinners and these receptions and these cocktails. And it's like, but there are rules, like, and stuff, like things you can't and can't wear. And,
mhm.
there's a level that you have to
Oh
have. And
yes.
I guess like one of the first rules that I learned was like, when you're there, I guess it's the same thing, right? It's like if the queen does it, then you do it, right? If she sits
Hmm.
down, then you sit down. So we're like, well, it's like we're sitting there and it's like 34 degrees Celsius, July, shirt, suit, tie, pants, socks. And it's just like, oh, would somebody please take off a jacket? Ambassador, like I'm like sending mine stuff. Ambassador, take off your jacket. Please give us permission to take off our jackets. I was like, and I'm at the house of the ambassador of Peru,
Hmm.
who I'm sure his body is acclimatized to wearing a suit in 34 degrees Celsius.
Well,
For him, it's no thing, right? And I'm saying, I am melting. Please. Oh God. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at like my boyfriend at the time, and it's like he sees my pleading eyes. It's like, come on, dude. Like it is hot. It's like you can swim laps in the pools under my armpits right now, dude. It's like, please let me take my shirt off. And it's like my jacket off, not my shirt. And it's
no,
like,
no, you
and he's
can't.
like, look,
No, no, there's protocol. You have to observe it. You just learn to roll with the
I
punches, man. Is what it
know, but
boils
it
down.
is so I mean, and then you're like,
Not everybody is cut out for that
I
kind of food.
know. And then I just imagined me sitting there, like this. It's been an hour and a half. I've been at that reception. Then somebody comes to me, wants to talk to me about Article 62, about something like this. And we are two nations with diverging opinions, and I have to remain diplomatic while I've got these pools of sweat under my arms so they can swim laps in and still remain pleasant. And so,
Mhm.
oh my God,
Yeah,
what a
no, it's
job.
hard.
You know what? When I was young, that's something I wanted. I was thinking of maybe doing, joining the diplomatic corps. It sounds so wonderful. I had wanderlust and wanted to discover and travel other countries. Um, Having had a little taste of it for about a year and a quarter that we
Ginger, yeah.
dated, ooh,
Yeah.
that's a tough job, man.
It's not for everybody. It isn't.
Mm-mm.
It's demanding, physically, emotionally, psychologically. You have to be on and happy and smiley, happy face all the time. You're performing basically. You are. See, here's the thing: is like
And you have no
as an
opinions of your
actor.
own.
No, but as an actor, I thought you would have loved
Yes.
that because the whole time you're acting.
No. No. Well, yeah. Back then, I might have been too young to put those two things together in that
Mm,
sense. But the other thing too is that relationally, it's very difficult because you're 4 years here and then 4 years somewhere else, 4 years here, 4 years somewhere else, right? The whole concept of long-lasting friendships. You have to have friendships that can, you know, tolerate like
mhm.
intensity for the 4 years you're here, and then like absence only with like a couple of emails and things now and then when you're gone. It's it's a hard life.
Yeah,
It's
it's not
not
easy.
like,
Like I
and
said,
if
it's
you're
not
the
for everybody.
family of a diplomat, it's not like you necessarily get a work permit when you go to the other place, right? So you're just
No,
there.
you rarely find any work, and I was there was I met a number of wonderful Canadians there who were when I was on the compound. One second, and I met a number of uh, unemployed gentlemen who were there with their wives,
Mhm.
and they're like, I can't work, so they're doing volunteer stuff around the city
Yeah.
just to keep themselves busy
Yeah.
because they're going squirrely, and I'm like, well, it's throwing tradition out the window. I'm like, cool. I dig it. It's like the breadwinner is the wife, and the husband is the homemaker. And a lot of people frown on that, but I'm like, no. He quit his job back home in Canada
Yeah, to support
because
her.
this is to support his wife because this was her lifetime's ambition was to work in the diplomatic corps and live around the world and get paid to do it and experience new cultures and represent the country. And he's like, yeah, I'll quit my job. I got no beef with that. This is the job I had was one that was uh, bringing me money, but it was not my life's ambition. This has been my wife's life's ambition since she was a little girl. This is what she wanted to do. So he said it was a no brainer for me. I'm like, cool, I dig it, man. I dig it.
Yeah. So yeah, and we had an opportunity. Like it was really relatively early on, but there was a possibility that he was going to maybe to be assigned to Spain, and we had to have that discussion. It's like yeah, you know, it's really quick. Do you would you come? Would you want to come? Would you?
Mm,
It's like I don't know, man. It's like, but would I be able to do that? I mean, like, and I'm thinking like Spain, right?
mm, mm.
It's like good food, get to learn another language, all that kind of stuff. But then again, it's like, but what do I do all day?
Yeah, that's the thing. You gotta find a volunteer position somewhere, otherwise you can become a raging alcoholic
Yeah, and I know absolutely nobody.
and you don't speak the language.
Yeah, so I mean, gee, that's got to be tough.
Well, and also you got to remember in Spain, you can go to a local tapas bar and have a glass of wine for €1, right?
That's what I mean. It's like it's not all
€1
bad.
for a glass of wine,
It's
and it's probably the best glass of the house wine is
right,
amazing
right.
because in Europe, for those of you who have never been, France, Spain, Portugal. I haven't been to Portugal yet, but it's on my radar. But those nations, they export the stuff they refuse to drink.
Mm. And I mean, and at some point along the way over those 4 years, I'd probably meet the king and queen of Spain, which probably wouldn't suck,
Yeah.
right?
Y-
So I mean, it's like it's not all bad, but it just that's a hard, like, again, imagine every 8 years if you're the spouse and you're like, you've lasted like in a 30, 40 year relationship. every 8 years you go to a new place where you have to do that all over again. New language, new culture, no, absolutely nobody.
Mhm.
Oh my God.
Well,
Like I
for
said,
me,
you don't think of when we think of these things, right? When we say,
it's nothing for me, though.
why don't we get these good people in these jobs? Like th- it's a that's a lot to ask a family to do.
Yeah, but again, it's nothing for me. Nothing. That wouldn't even I'd be like, "Yeah, let's go."
Yeah, yeah.
Military kid.
Well,
That was
exactly.
my life. Every 2 or 3 years, we moved to a new part of the country. The culture, yeah, I know it's still Canada, but the culture is different on every
Mm,
base, especially when you're moving from big city to small town, and then you gotta mix in with the townies, and, yeah, there's
yeah,
complications, and there's a culture
yeah,
that you have to learn to adapt to as a child quickly, and
yeah.
you need to change your accent quickly so you fit in, so you don't
Yes.
stand out. So, yeah, I get it. I get it. It's
Foster
something I could
kid, bounce
easily
from home to home. That's a talent I have. New environment. How does it work here? But I mean, when you think of that military, same thing. Military families, they get moved around. Right? It's not just the person that's like. That's what I mean. There are certain jobs that are jobs, and there are other jobs that are lifestyles.
Mhm.
Like there's an entire lifestyle that comes along with it that you have to want to sign on to. It's like I can imagine like a OBGYN. It's like the baby comes when the baby comes.
Mhm.
That phone rings, you got to go. Right? It's a lifestyle. So yeah, interesting, interesting. Wait, wow, that was an unexpected and interesting conversation. I actually enjoyed that. That was nice.
Cool.
Yeah,
So if anybody wants to know what I like for Christmas, there we go.
Atkinson's.
My
What is that?
namesake, it's Oud Save the King, a Mystic Essence. It's my
Ooh,
favorite fragrance. I discovered it when I was in New Delhi, and it was funny. I was in this big shopping district, and I was walking by this store, and I saw their logo was a big bear, and you can see the 2 bears on either side, in their logo. So they had a gentleman in a bear costume, and I'm like, "What the" and I see my name everywhere in this window of this perfumery. So I walk in and I go, what's this all about?" And they go, "Oh, we're just promoting the newest fragrance from Atkinson's from London." I'm like, "Really? Do I get a discount?" He goes, "Why?" And I pulled out my passport and I go, "That's why." He goes, "You know what? I will give you a discount and I'll give you some extra fragrances on top of that." I'm like, "Well, that's cool." So, so that's how I discovered my signature scent, if you will.
literally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
Literally
my
my
set.
signature
That's my
scent.
name.
Got my name right on it.
All right, get some cups. Ah, some news. We're going to talk a little bit BC debate today because I got some clips for you from the first half that reveal a lot, actually, but in some subtle ways. But there's a couple of little tidbits of news first. Um, some news you can use consumer wise. Fisher Price issued a recall for nearly 100,000 infant swings in Canada over a suffocation risk.
Mm,
Um, it's I'll just read the article here. It's in a CBC. Several models of Fisher Price Snugga swings are being recalled across Canada after manufacturer Mattel received reports of 5 suffocation deaths involving infants. Health Canada said the swing is not supposed to be used for sleep and bedding material should never be added to it. Quote, if the product is used for sleep or bedding material is added, the headrest and body support insert on the seat pad can increase the risk of suffocation. The recall affects 12 models of the Fisher-Price Snugga Swing, 99,000 units of which were sold in Canada between 2012 and 2022. If you've bought something since 2022, you are absolutely okay. The ones that are on recall are not being sold anymore in stores, but a lot of these sets get sold secondhand, like at garage sales and stuff like that, right? They're used for a certain amount of time, and then the baby outgrows them, and then they're sold or given to another baby. So even though they're not for sale anymore, um, you might still be acquiring one, right? If you're getting one through other means. The list, the CBC article, uh, it's called Fisher Price recalls nearly 100,000 infant swings in Canada over suffocation risk. I will try to get a link and post it to the chat there for you kids and cubs, so that you can see all the model numbers and models that are there. They say the model number can be found on the underside of the swing motor compartment. Health Canada asks consumers to stop using those products immediately and to remove the headrest and body support insert from the seat pad. More than 2 million such products were sold in the United States, and 400 were also sold in Mexico. And there you go. It also says that consumers may contact Mattel to receive a partial refund for the headrest and body support insert, according to Health Canada. So there you go. Like I said, I will try to copy that and get that into the chat for the show. But yeah, so a little bit of news you can use there. The other thing that is important to know, kids and cubs, is that the pharmacare bill appears to have received royal assent in the Senate. And I'm trying to see. There we go. According to the CBC again, the pharmacare bill that was central to a political pact between the Liberals and NDP received royal assent on Thursday night and has now become law. The legislation, which passed in the Senate without any amendments, will inform the creation of any future national universal pharmacare plan. It will also allow the government to sign deals with provinces and territories to cover diabetes and birth control medications as part of the public health system. See what else does it say here. The wording and content of the bill was carefully negotiated as part of the now defunct supply and confidence deal between the NDP and Liberals. British Columbia has already signed a memorandum of understanding with Ottawa to launch the program in that province. Health Minister Mark Holland has said he hopes to have all provinces and territories on board by next spring. And this is well,
to quote Joe Biden when he was the vice president and Barack Obama passed the Affordable Care Act.
Yes.
This is a big fucking deal.
It is, because it lays the groundwork so you have it. If somebody wants to repeal it, they're going to have to justify why and take the hit. And if somebody doesn't want to keep adding to it over time, because now the infrastructure exists.
Well, so what's happening is insulin will be funded by the state. We're going to be paying for it through our tax dollars. And you know what? I am completely fine with that.
Same here.
Contraception and insulin should now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't if memory serves, now it's not on that bill, but I think it's a separate thing where pads, tampons are to be funded as well?
That's a different bill. Yes, I think it's something like having to do with they refer to it as the pink tax.
Right. I can't remember exactly the details of it, but they were like, "Oh no, that's going to be free." It's not free. My taxes, yeah, and so let me see if I get this correct. Some dumb idiot male somewhere is going to complain, "I don't want to pay for that," and I'm like, "Well, dude, guess what? If you're not gay, you're never getting laid again." Ever again, because every woman in the country likes the idea of not having to pay through the nose for a product that they absolutely, unequivocally need. They need. So I don't have an issue with paying for that. And again, I'm not even middle class. Well, hell, I'm broke as can be. I got no money coming in, and I'm unemployed. Well, I'm technically I have a new job, but it's commission only, so there's no income right now. So do I have an issue with people getting products they desperately need and my tax dollars help pay for it? No. That's the point of tax dollars. It's to pay for services and things that people need on the daily. So if once I start earning money again, if my money is going to pay for insulin, for contraception, for menstruation products, I have no issue with that. I think it's a great idea. It's called community. It's how we pick each other up, lift each other up off the ground, and rise each one up to have equity in the system. It's, there's equality and then there's equity. And the difference being is equity, we're all at the same level. The rising tide that lifts all boats, it's a real thing if we put some time and effort into it.
Yeah,
and don't worry about, it's going to cost you a few more pennies on your tax dollar. So what?
Yeah, big whoop.
So what?
You're getting something for it.
Yes. And here's the best part. Your community benefits from it. And we
Yep.
all live in a community, whether you want to realize it or admit to it or not. We all do.
Yep. So pharmacare is now a thing. BC had already signed on pre this, saying that, no matter what it is, we're going to. So at least there's one province started. It's going to be one of those things, that's formula again, that seems to be working, that the federal government says, hey, got to put a money here for you. You want it? And provinces go, no, no, no. And then they take the dough. So that's basically how it's been going on. And then whether or not they actually spend it on the thing and then try to scuttle the program after they've taken the dough in some weird way, then becomes the discussion. Right, Doug Ford on daycare?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Trying to kill it.
I know. So it's a thing now. Of course, this has implications with regard to the minority situation in the House and the fact that somebody's always threatening to go to an election, because we knew that the NDP was certainly not going to do it before pharmacare received royal assent. So now they have it. So now it's going to be, so NDP, how long do you think that pharmacare needs to actually be a thing for us to be able to get used to it and like it? Because said right now, when it applies, it's only applying in BC because they're the only province that has signed on. Mm-hmm. They're the only province that bought the color TV before they invented color movies. So they're the first ones who get to see it.
Yeah. Once the product is available, they get it first.
Yes. So let's see how long it takes the other provinces and territories to invest in some color TVs. Insulin contraceptives. Over 50% of the population is women. I know that not all women are using contraceptives.
No,
at this point, different stages in their lives and whatnot. Yeah. But that's a big deal. Let's put it this way. It's a change of law that affects over 50% of the population for a significant period of their lives, for each one of their lives, without exception.
Well, as former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney has stated in the recent past, because he's passed, the big ticket items that this government has delivered will be remembered for decades. Decades. I mean, dental care, pharmacare, childcare, a national school food program. These are all things we didn't have 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And this will benefit so many people and lift up people, not to mention the fact that this will help increase the size of the middle class. Because when you don't have to invest all of your hard-earned money into childcare, dental care, and drugs, pharmacy, pharmacological products, when because so many people are like, what was it? Pierre Poilievre had stated, well, we don't need to come up with a national pharmacare program. Most people have coverage under their employer. No, Pierre, that's not true. That's not true at all. I know, because I've been that person who's had no coverage. Right now, I have nothing. Even though I've started a new job, it's a commission-only sales position. So I have no coverage. So when I need to renew my prescription for my sertraline, which is what keeps me here on this planet alive and breathing, it's going to come right out of my pocket, and it ain't cheap. And I have no coverage. So if I can sign up for pharmacare to get that covered, I will sign up for that immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's what I mean. So now, hopefully, now that the structure exists, there are other medications such as like that. The ones to deal with to help people. I don't even. What is it? Adjust, cope. What would the word? To manage. Manage. That's the word. Manage their mental health.
Oh yeah.
I was trying to figure the words. Like I know it's like not cope. I couldn't. The word was not coming to me. But because you don't cure, you manage.
You do manage it. That's the thing. And some days are good and some days are bad. Yesterday was a bad day for me. Today is not a great day for me at all. But I'm managing. I'm getting through. Bridget was concerned yesterday, and she came over last night. And she's like, I said, no, I'm not going to harm myself. I am suffering. I know this is a temporary situation. I will come through it. It takes time. It's unfortunate, and it can literally flatten you and put you on your back, but it's temporary, and I know this. It's torture while you're going through it, And it feels like it's going to last forever. But after 44 years, almost 45 years of battling this, I know it's only temporary. And the medication has made a tremendous change in my life. So do I support pharmacare? Yeah, damn right I do, especially when I don't have any.
Yeah,
And
same here.
even when I did have it, I still supported it because I know that there are people in this world who will work 2 or 3 jobs with no coverage just to make ends meet, and then they need to get a prescription, and that prescription can be $200 to $300. They can't afford that. Adrian Harewood, a broadcaster here with the CBC in Ottawa, has stated some time ago that he said, I went to get a prescription and I discovered prescription was $450 without my coverage through my employer. He says, what do people do in a case like that? And I just responded to him. I said, we do without.
Right.
It's that simple. We don't get the prescription because we cannot afford it. That's how it boils down. It's like, do I pay my rent and eat, or do I get a prescription to stay alive? I don't know. Let's see. Let's just gamble and pay the rent and buy some food to keep the roof over my head and food in my belly so I'll stay alive. But I might suffer horribly for the next little while until I get this medication that I need. So
yeah. And if you never get in a situation where you can, and then you sit there and you wonder why there's such a mental health issue on our streets and within the homelessness sector.
It's all part and parcel.
It all cascades down.
Yes. So having
there's more stuff that trickles down than trickles up.
Nothing trickles up.
Oh, so, right.
Nothing trickles up.
Right.
And the trickle down effect has been terrible for decades. It doesn't work.
Well, in mental health, especially when the cuts to the whole mental health system and not wanting to deal with that trickle down effect is
terrible.
It's terrible.
You know how many lost productive work days there are because of mental health issues? You know how many companies have people. I don't know how many times I've called in sick when I was not physically ill. I couldn't say, I'm sorry, but I'm incredibly depressed today and I can't get out of bed. So I would just say it's my back or I have the flu or whatever. And I've always felt guilty for lying about it, but you're just programmed to tell that lie because telling the truth isn't, now it's acceptable. Now it's understandable, but still there's a lot of companies that will be like, oh, suck it up.
Yep.
Get into work.
According to the Canadian Association of Mental Health illness is the leading cause of disability in this country, preventing nearly 500,000 employed Canadians from attending work each week. To make matters worse, the cost of disability leave as a result of all mental illness is about to double the cost of leave due to physical illness. All in, the economic burden of mental illness in Canada is an estimated $51 billion per year, including healthcare costs, lost productivity, and reductions in health-related quality of life. So it's like if we could invest like $5 or $6 billion throughout the country to just make sure that everything was there, we would say 51.
Yeah.
Right? It's like again, we keep on saying it. Doing the right thing the first time is always eventually, over the long run, the least expensive option. Like government's steadfast refusal to do that, like this, and even more infuriatingly so when somebody proposes doing the right thing, having an opposition party that rather than saying, you know what, that is the right thing, but you might be doing this the wrong way, or this could be a little bit of a hearsay, just turn around, no, that's the wrong thing. It's the opposite. We should do the complete opposite. When it is clearly the right thing to do, when the thing is the right thing to do, you don't argue about doing it or not. You argue about how you get it done more or less efficiently.
Yes.
It's like just this whole thing. It's like I'm going to oppose even the good ideas just because I'm supposed to be the opposition. That's not what it frickin' means.
That's the current problem with the current opposition is they oppose everything no matter what. It's oppose and propose. They don't propose. They just say, no, we're voting against that. Why? You're going to help millions of people who need help. No, we're voting against it because it's a big ticket program that we don't believe in big government programs like that.
So work to make it not big ticket by focusing on those who need it most, but do something. Stop putting sticks in the spokes when we're trying to go forward. God damn it. All right.
And now he wants to, you saw where he stated the other day that he wants to force people into rehab.
Yes. We will get there. Yes. We will talk about that. It's going to come up later in the show in another aspect here. The Prime Minister is overseas at the ASEAN summit, so he's in Laos this week. And this is an annual summit that takes place, and Canada attends, of course, to in its constant effort to strengthen ties with the region that happens to have, of course, strong influence from China. The delegation arrived late Wednesday, local time. The prime minister was to have meetings on Thursday and Friday of this week. It's the third consecutive time he's attended the Association of the Southeast Asian Nations Summit, and it's been 1 year since Canada established a strategic partnership with the regional bloc. The association represents the nations of Malaysia, Indonesia, Laos, the Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, Brunei, Cambodia, and Myanmar. Government officials say that Canada is increasing its presence in the region to build credibility as a reliable economic partner, noting ASEAN is one of the fastest growing economic regions, with member states representing Canada's fourth largest merchandise trading partner last year. And a certain number of those countries are co-signatories of the CPTPP that we signed, that the Trudeau government finalized early on in its 8 or 9 year mandate, depending on who's counting. Right, Pierre? The visit also builds on the Liberal government's Indo-Pacific strategy, which provides a roadmap to strengthen military and economic relationships in the region and counterbalance the influence of China. Canada's efforts are part of a larger Western push for stronger economic and political relationships with the Southeast Asian countries, largely to reduce reliance on Chinese goods. Canada, the US, and the European Union have all taken steps to safeguard against perceived national and economic security threats from China, including imposing hefty tariffs on Chinese products such as electric vehicles. A government official speaking on background said while Canada has not historically focused on Asia, the Indo-Pacific strategy has refocused the country's global priorities. Meanwhile, Southeast Asian countries are also concerned about over-reliance on any global power, including China, for their economic security. Tensions have increased in the region as China becomes increasingly aggressive in asserting its claims in the South China Sea, through which about US $5 trillion in global trade transits each year. The sea passage is also believed to be sitting atop vast undersea deposits of oil and gas. Aside from China, the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan also have overlapping claims in the strategic waterway. The official says that bringing Canada as a strategic partner elevates the relationship with the regional bloc and helps those countries achieve their goal of economic diversification. Trudeau and Japan's new Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba are the only G7 leaders expected to attend the summit. The Canadian government is working to establish a free trade agreement with ASEAN and is in the final stages of negotiating an agreement with Indonesia. And for those who are not aware, Indonesia is one of the most populous countries in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The free trade deal with Indonesia is expected to come together by the end of the year. Trudeau's trip marks the first time a Canadian Prime Minister has made an official visit to Laos. Really?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
Well, why would we have gone there before? There was no need.
Because you just, as a nation, you just make sure that they have the whole list of countries and that you tour them once every like 5 or 6 years to make sure you hit every one. So like, we've never been to wow. And also marks 50 years of bilateral relations with this Southeast Asian country. So we've had 50 years of bilateral relations, but we've only gone now. Wow.
280 million people live in Indonesia. Indonesia is not a big geographic area.
No, it's very densely populated. The Prime Minister, who's accompanied by Trade Minister Mary Ng, is also expected to hold bilateral meetings with the leaders in the Laos capital. I think it's Vientiane. No, Vientiane. I know I think Laos was part of the whole French thing at the time. So, but I'm not sure if that's there's an Asian pronunciation to that, or if that's the French pronunciation. But it's Vientiane. Vientiane, let's say. While geopolitics won't be the focus of the summit, the government is expecting issues such as the war in the Middle East to come up. ASEAN includes several predominantly Muslim countries such as Malaysia and Indonesia, which have opposed Israel's military action in Gaza and have advocated on behalf of Palestinians. Trudeau was also set to attend a meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contract Group on Saturday, hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden at the Ramstein Air Base in Germany. Biden has canceled his trip as a result of Hurricane Milton, a devastating storm that made landfall in Florida on late Wednesday. The Prime Minister's office said that the Prime Minister was no longer attending. It's not clear if the meeting will be rescheduled. And it seems, according to reports, that while at the summit, the Prime Minister had his second face-to-face moment with the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi, since standing up in the House of Commons and stating that he was pretty damn sure that the government of India had something to do with the murder of a Canadian citizen, an extrajudicial killing of a Canadian citizen here on Canadian soil. So the first time they met was in June, and it happened again there. And it would appear, even though it was a brief exchange, the Prime Minister did report back on it and stated that this issue is still top of mind, and but there still doesn't seem to be any recognition, either publicly or diplomatically, I'm guessing, either in forward or in back channels diplomatically, of any role or responsibility. And according to Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly, we are very open to receiving help of the government of India to help investigate what's going on. But they seem to be totally unwilling in any way, shape, or form to participate in that. So nothing has yet moved for the government of India. So I'm guessing that court case of the United States has to go forward a little more. And some people need to start feeling some heat and realizing how much things like this could hurt before things might unblock there. But it seems that the government of India has not yet had it impressed upon them yet how it is the case that if they wish to accede to the lead table at the international poker tournament at which everyone is cheating, as Beau of the Fifth Column says it, if they want to sit at the high rollers table, there are certain things that you do not do, and extrajudicial killings of foreign nationals on their home soil might be one of those.
Yeah.
And plots to take out several of them, as is alleged in the United States court case, is a really, really big no-no.
Well, also things like let's meddle in the politics of a foreign government by getting the guy elected that they wanted in position of loyal opposition.
That's leader. A whole other barrel of apples.
Yeah, good one. I just wanted to give a note here to those listening and watching, compare and contrast, if you will. Nunavut is, to give you an idea, I'm going somewhere, is 1.997 million square kilometers. Land area is 1.836 million square kilometers, almost 1.837. And the area of Indonesia is 1.913 million. Population is 280 million people. So that gives you a nation approximately the size of Nunavut has almost 300 million people. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just to give you an idea of how big Indonesia is.
All right. The next thing that they had for you before we get to the BC debate, I think there was one more little thing, if I'm not mistaken. Or did I get them all?
I don't know.
I'm just taking a look here. I may have hit them all, actually. So there we go. There's a couple of other things that are going on where I'm going to move to some provincial politics here. I haven't had time to delve into it all that much, but it seems that in Saskatchewan, there is a candidate that happened to use a certain word.
Well, now, both Saskatchewan and BC have this issue right now.
Yes. BC too. Same word?
Yeah. Similar
Similar word. Okay,
terminology.
yeah. Okay. Now, I think you might have, if you're listening to the show for a while, you might have definitely heard me say a couple of times, it's like, I am very, very surprised that they haven't said that word yet. Sorry, that was me. I clicked something I wasn't supposed to. It's like, at some point, someone's just going to come straight up and say it.
Mhm.
It seems that, yeah, that has happened. So there's a Sask Party MLA, according to the Regina Leader Post, who one day ago, well, he will not. Let's just put it this way: he will not be asked to step down, which is interesting. It's all right. But the incident was revealed by outgoing House Speaker and former Sask Party MLA Randy Weeks, Weeksy Leaks, who met with media Tuesday. He recounted an event from April 2023 when he said a black woman working in the Sask Party caucus overheard caucus chair David Buckingham and a former MLA using racial slurs. The Sask Party responded with an emailed statement that said Buckingham, quote, was talking about another individual using a racially inappropriate term, and in doing so, he repeated that term. The statement added that he realized he should not have done that and took sensitivity training. Buckingham is seeking re-election this fall. I want to apologize again, he said during a campaign event Wednesday with Sask Party leader Scott Moe. Quote, it was a really dumb mistake, something that is not okay. We're a country of inclusivity, and my comments were completely inappropriate. Moe said he's sticking with Buckingham despite the revelation that his candidate used racist language. Moe noted that he felt the incident was, quote, handled appropriately at the time, with the party following all of its protocols. Quote, we very much strive to be a diverse and inclusive party, and Moe did not comment on the timing of Weeks' media availability. According to Weeks, the impacts of that incident didn't end there for the woman, who corroborated his statements in a phone interview with the Leader Post but asked that her name not be used for fear of reprisal. When the incident took place, Weeks said the two men repeatedly used the N-word, which left the woman horrified by what she heard. He said he decided to speak to media about her experience after she gave him the go-ahead. It's the latest in a string of allegations and strong statements made by Weeks against Moe and the Sask Party since the end of the Legislative Assembly's spring sitting. Oh, Mr. Weeks, thank you so much.
Yeah, he's digging up all the dirt.
Petty isn't the favorite color.
No, he's digging up all the dirt. He's bringing it all out. I was reading some of his commentary yesterday and went, dude's not having it. He's not having it.
The woman added that after the incident, she took time away from the office to manage the shock of the experience. She said she complained to the caucus chief of staff and reported the incident to Human Resources. Weeks alleges that the woman was eventually bullied and her position downgraded within caucus for, quote, not being a team player. Yes, let's recruit the black people into team N-word racism. There's a good idea. And when they don't want to join, let's punish them. Because nothing says racist like punishing people for not being okay with your racism. Okay. In an email statement, the Sask Party said it couldn't speak to specifics of the allegations, of course not, regarding how the woman was treated in the office after the incident was reported. However, the party expressed confidence, quote, that the quote, caucus office has handled all personnel matters appropriately and respectfully, the statement said, before adding, quote, we are not aware of any of the other incidents that the speaker described in his media availability today. Yeah, I'm sure you're not. Wink. Speaking in Saskatoon on Wednesday, let's try that again. I got a little animated here. Speaking in Saskatoon on Wednesday, Saskatchewan NDP leader Carla Beck said the revelation about Buckingham was, quote, really shocking. Quote, I think Scott Moe, as the leader, needs to account for what goes on in his caucus, said Beck. It's not something most people would stand for. Buckingham was running in the Saskatoon Westview constituency, was first elected in 2016. Outside of being government caucus chair, he also served as a board member of the Crown Investment Corporation. As for the aforementioned incident, quote, there was one occasion where I repeated a racially inappropriate word as I was recounting a story of another individual using that word, Buckingham said in an earlier statement of his own provided to Leader Post. That was wrong. and I should not have used that word, regardless of the context. I immediately apologized to caucus staff, realizing it was a wrong thing to say, and then apologized to my caucus colleagues at the first opportunity. Notice that I always noticed a tendency from a conservative, non-melanin advantaged elected officials to apologize to other conservative, non-melanin advantaged colleagues when they do or say something racist, but never to the melanin advantaged people about whom they were racist. Again, because nothing says racism like apologizing to other white people for what your racism has done to them.
I don't care.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. That's the same thing as like, oh my God, Trudeau did blackface. It is so terrible. Here's some pictures of Trudeau in blackface for you to look at, black people. Thanks. Because none of us have ever seen blackface before and are completely unfamiliar. We needed to be reminded, and we needed you, white conservative person who hates Trudeau, to remind us of what, or that he did. Thanks.
Yeah. It's just,
I hope you feel you've been helpful. Like we forgot. These people, man. These. Oh, my God. So, apparently, during an appearance, he made a second apology.
I'd like to apologize for my earlier apology.
It's literally that skit.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I'm not sure if it was apologizing to apologize, but I guess it was very clear that he didn't do it right the first times. CBC, the Saskatchewan Party candidate, has repeated his apology for saying racial slurs a year ago, this time in person with the party leader.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing I'm not clear on, is whether or not he said the apology one day and this one came about like 2 days later, or if he had apologized some time ago for this, and this one right now that I'm reporting on is the second one. But, oh, man. It's always nice when you need to apologize twice. I'm not familiar with the one in BC.
Well, I'd have to dig it up, but there's something very similar happening in British Columbia for certain ministers within the Progressive Conservative, or BC United, which is the new PC party, or I guess that's what their name is, BCPC. But they, there's an individual who is behaving in the same manner and saying very similar things. I just can't seem to find where the story went. I thought I had bookmarked it, but apparently I did not. When you read as many things as I do throughout the day to try and gather stuff for the show, sometimes you miss a few things here and there.
Well, it's the same thing to me, and sometimes I see something and it's like I thought I bookmark it, and then I didn't.
Realize you didn't.
I'm trying to go from memory. Was it exactly that or something? But yes. Oh, yes. This one about Palestinians. The BC Conservative candidate is facing criticism for an offensive online comment he made about Palestinians when the comment resurfaced. Brent Chapman, the Conservative candidate for Surrey South, made a Facebook comment in 2015 describing Palestinians as, quote, little inbred walking, talking, breathing time bombs. I'm going to guess that's the one.
Yeah. There's
that
more to
sounds, it. That sounds very, very, very racist-y.
There's more.
That sounds like something that would get someone in trouble. Holy fuck. Sorry. Almost let one slip there. I know on this show we can, but holy heffin' shitballs.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Late Wednesday night, Chapman issued an apology for his comments. The language I used and the sentiments I expressed at the time towards Palestinians and members of the Islamic faith were completely unacceptable. Yeah, think? He said in a statement. They do not reflect who I am today or the respect and admiration I hold for the Palestinian and Muslim communities. Now, here's one thing I will say. Like this. They do not reflect who I am today. Because
Yeah,
usually when people say that like this, that's not who I am. It's like, no, 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 no.
it is who you are.
Like, well, I don't know if it's who you are, but on that day, in that moment, it was who you were.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's not who I am today is way better in an apology. It's like, that's not the kind of person I am. It's like, well, you didn't prove it on that day, honey. So, he added the words he wants to quote, offer his sincerest apologies to everyone hurt by my past words. An apology to the actual people he hurt.
How
Did
novel.
we just talk about? Okay. Before the apology, Conservative leader John Rustad said he would ask Chapman to apologize and added that the comments do not reflect the party's values. Rustad also said he would not ask Chapman to step aside. Quote, as I said, he should apologize for those comments. I've got people on my campaign team who are Palestinian, and I know that would offend them, so I'm expecting an apology. After all, my chief of staff is Muslim. The National Council of Canadian Muslims reached out to Chapman about his posts. Quote, we recognize that Mr. Chapman has apologized both privately to us and publicly, the organization said in a statement. And it seems that the apology privately to them happened before the apology in public, which is how it should be. You first apologize privately to the people like this, and then you go do the public statement. You don't go do the public statement first and then get all the adulation and then say, well, I said it publicly. Isn't that enough? No, it's not.
Well,
You
Canadian
need to
Muslim
have the face-to-face moment.
Canadian Muslim and Sikh orgs are demanding answers from BC Conservatives about past comments made by spokesperson Anthony Koch, including calling a woman a vile. See you next Tuesday. Yeah.
Hey, as we mentioned the other day on the show,
Brent Chapman is the other guy.
Yeah, BC United, before this happened, had dug up about 200 pages of opposition research on a whole bunch of like crappy and terrible things that candidates and Rustad and whatnot had said in the past. So, drip, 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 drip.
Well, Press Progress has details about what Chapman said about Syrian refugees and Muslims in a private Facebook group chat. The comments are from
There's more.
2015.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those
He's
are the ones.
apologized and said the comments don't reflect his current views.
Yeah.
But what he said was pretty damning.
Well, I mean, the only one so far in the story that I'm reading is the little inbred walking, talking, breathing time bombs one.
Yeah.
So if there was more.
Well, he says it is forbidden to marry outside your family in Palestine. Yeah. In another post, Chapman claimed Muslim babies in Saudi Arabia are born with birth defects and malformed organs caused by rampant consanguinity.
Consanguinity.
Yeah, well, it has to do with
having similar bloodline, the same bloodline.
Yeah,
sharing a bloodline. Why is it with you're inbreds? Like, it's always the worst possible thing, right? You're a pedo. You're inbred. It's like, why can't you just be a dick or a dumbass? Why do you have to be inbred and a pedo?
That's their go-to.
It's literally the most extreme things.
Yeah.
God, guys, aren't you tired?
Apparently not.
Ugh. Jeez. It's, oh my God. Okay. So this might explain what seems to be indicating here, according to 338. It's been updated. This is really cool. Okay, let's see what it says today. it was showing that John Rusted's mouth had start getting him into trouble. But he appears to be getting a little bounce since the debate. So that is surprising to me because based on the first half that I've watched, but okay, this explains why. I just wanted to see. Given the first pace that I watched, he wasn't particularly impressive. I didn't see how he would necessarily get a bounce out of the debate. But this is according to 338.com. Main Street Research has come in with the latest poll, which has adjusted it here, showing the CPC in the lead. But Main Street seems to be the only polling company showing the CPC ever at a lead. All the other ones seem to show that there's a substantial NDP lead going on here. And unfortunately, I do not know how to take the screen down, Mr. Grizzly, because these are not the same buttons as usual. Oh, wait a minute. There's a stop sharing button there. Okay, I just see it now. Now, if you want to look at how that, oh my God, this is being complicated today, at how this translates into seats, you will see how it is that I've noticed it looked like British Columbians were starting to decide. Okay, this is really not working. I'm having some trouble today. Sorry. 338 is being a little uncooperative. There we go. Let's try that. That should be it. There we go. Sorry about that. That was a little trickier than I had expected it to be. So there we go. As you will see, over the course of the election, as you were coming into the election, there was some jockeying for position. The lead kept changing a little bit, and then the NDP seemed to have broken up a big lead here. And then since the debate, it's narrowed. But right now, the polls are still indicating in terms of seat projection that the NDP will win and have a very slight majority of one seat at the moment. But it was looking for, just before going into the election, it was looking, the Conservatives had just taken the lead a little bit in polling projection. So it's a tight race. And unfortunately, that gap that started opening up is not continuing then in that same direction. Darn. This guy can't win, man. He is terrible.
Yeah.
All right. Which brings us to the BC debate. I have a couple of clips from Kits and Cubs. The first one happens, I think it's around the 8-minute mark, Mr. Grizzly. John Rustad, and you've probably heard about this in the news so far. There we go. Do about 8 minutes 40 seconds, Mr. Grizzly. Okay. We're at 8 minutes 40 seconds of the debate, so this is really early on. And Rustad drops this, and I want you to listen for. We'll continue a little bit after he says it, and I just want you to listen to what reaction this receives from everybody else there.
Thank you very much. And when I look at what's going on in British Columbia today, there are people dying on the streets. There are people dying on the streets, whether it's from crime or whether it's drugs. I was on my way over here, and at the corner of Robson and Hornby, there was an individual who died. And there was emergency people rushing. This person died from an overdose. This is the British Columbia that David Eby has created. Tent cities are growing all over the place. We have a crisis in healthcare. We've got a crisis in affordability. We've got a crisis in housing. What we need is a common sense plan that is going to be able to deliver for people in this province. British Columbia has all the potential you could ever want. We have all the resources that we could ever want. We've got a well-trained, well-educated population, but we're hopelessly managed. What's needed in British Columbia is a government that will tackle these issues, that will make sure we get government out of the way, and that we make sure that people can once again be proud to be British Columbia and to be able to build a future here.
Thank you, Mr. Rustad. Mr. Eby.
Thanks. There are huge challenges in our province, and they're not unique to our province, whether it's the cost of living, challenges around getting the doctors and nurses that we need to ensure our healthcare system delivers care for you and your family when and where you need it, the issue of affordable housing. These are critical challenges, and we can solve these problems. In fact, we're starting to turn the corner on some of them. For example, we connected 250,000 people to a family doctor in the last year. We're going to connect another 160,000 in the next 6 months. Well, every British Columbian who wants a family doctor will be able to have one by the end of 2025 at the pace we're going right now. What you hear from John Rustad, conspiracy theories, division, cuts, it's not going to solve the problems that we face. We got to take these problems head on, and we've got to do so much more. And we can solve these problems together.
Thank you, Mr. Eby.
All right. So, 8 minutes into the debate, Mr. Rustad drops the bomb that he saw someone actually die on his way to the debate. He looks super worked up about it, isn't he?
It didn't happen.
And nobody else. David Eby is like, yeah, affordability, and we can get everyone a doctor. Nobody reacted. Nobody went, oh my God, that's terrible. Did you really?
He did.
Nothing, right?
It's a lie.
Nothing happened. There was no reaction to that. And then after the debate, of course, like you said, it didn't, well, saying it didn't happen, maybe not, but CBC, 2 days ago, Rustad changed a story on fatal overdose coroner had no record of.
Yeah.
BC Conservatives leader had claimed at televised debate that he saw an overdose at Robson and Hornsby Streets. The BC Coroner Services says it has no record of any recent drug toxicity death at a Vancouver intersection where BC Conservatives leader John Rustad said he saw a man die while on his way to a televised election debate. A story the Tory leader would later change completely. Because I hope you did something as you were seeing the man die. Or did you see the man die when paramedics were already there that don't have a report? I'm guessing the paramedics weren't there because they didn't file a report. So
what did you do?
See him dying as he was dying? And there was nobody there to help? What did they do with the body, sir?
He lied.
Yes. So Rustad told Tuesday's party leaders debate he saw someone die from an overdose on the corner of Robson and Hornsby Street, Vancouver, later telling a news conference he watched first responders pumping his chest as an ambulance arrived. The BC Coroner Service says it would be notified of a deadly overdose, and it has no record of such an event in the last 2.5 weeks at the location given by Rustad. The service says its first responders were on scene and the service says if first responders were on a scene and a person died, quote, a coroner would be called and would also be notified if a person received resuscitation but later died in hospital. BC Emergency Health Services also says it has no records of any patient events on Tuesday at the corner of Robson and Hornsby Streets or on the blocks immediately adjacent to that intersection. Rustad had used the anecdote during his debate with NDP leader David Eby and Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau as an illustration of what he called, quote, the British Columbia that David Eby has created, quote, and then he lists the quote that we just showed you. He was asked to elaborate at the post-debate news conference, quote, what I saw from the window as I was looking down at this individual on the ground with the emergency people pumping his chest, trying to bring him back to life and an ambulance coming up. I mean, it's just horrendous to think that that is becoming normal place on our streets here in Vancouver and across the province. So he was looking down, his words, at this individual on the ground with emergency people pumping his chest, trying to bring him back to life. And he immediately concluded that the person died, and it was because of a toxic drug overdose. Couldn't have been any other reason.
Yeah, and none of that happened. So, I mean...
Well, I mean, there's no coroner report right now that doesn't say there's no report of no ambulance having, or no paramedics having been dispatched to that thing. But there's nobody that died.
Right.
There's no coroner report. A day after the debate, after requests from CBC News, Rustad changed his stories to say that he saw an overdose at a different downtown location and the person survived. Oh, no, he didn't die. Yes, they pumped his chest and then he got up. Yeah, that's it. That's the ticket with my wife, Morgan Fairchild.
Yes.
Yeah. I was
That was a
walking down the
John
street
Lovitz character
with
from
Morgan
SNL.
Fairchild, my wife. I just, really? Dude. In an emailed response, a conservative spokesperson said that Rust had witnessed a person overdosing at the corner of Burrard and Helmkin Streets while in a moving car. The spokesperson emailed a picture which they said was taken by Rusted's aide.
Yeah.
Which appears to show people gathered outside a youth shelter on Burrard Street close to St. Paul's Hospital. However, no emergency responders or ambulance are visible in the image. So, yeah, I'll put it up. Because apparently this is the picture that's supposed to say, see, there was a drug overdose and paramedics were pumping someone's chest, but it's a group of kids standing in a circle around something.
An out of focus photograph, too.
Yeah. From very, 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 well, not very, very far away, but I mean, it's like I can't make out any faces in this photo.
No.
Yeah. See, it did happen. Look at this picture where there's like nobody on the ground and no ambulance and nobody pumping anybody's chest and nobody in any uniform. But yeah, that was okay. However, no emergency responders or ambulances are visible in the image. The spokesperson said that Rustad did not engage with anyone on the scene, but said that, quote, some of the bystanders at the scene signaled that the person in question had sadly passed. As you were driving by? From a distance, I saw someone who was unresponsive being resuscitated by medical professionals on my way to the debate. Come on, dude. I'm overjoyed to have been told that the individual who I had been told had overdosed survived thanks to the heroic efforts of our first responders. Who told you if you were driving by? What? Like, you didn't stop to intervene, but you stopped to listen someone tell you that the person had... Okay. The conservative leader did not have any public events scheduled for Wednesday, the day after the debate. Yeah, I bet. In an emailed statement the following day, Emergency Health Services said it received a call at 3:59 p.m. on October 8th regarding a person in need of emergency medical care at the 1100 block of Burrard Street near Helmkin in Vancouver. EHS said it dispatched 2 ambulances and a patient was taken to the hospital but was unable to say if it was the result of an overdose due to privacy considerations. In a post on the social media platform X, Rustad said that there was an ambulance at the scene where he saw it and his staff walked by as CPR was happening. One lady said, "He's overdosed." Another said, "He's gone," Rustad claimed in his post. BC Coroner Service Media Relations Manager Amber Schinkel said in an emailed response to questions that she had reviewed quote, reviewed drug toxicity deaths in Vancouver since September 25th, 2024, and there is nothing near this address. Asked if there were circumstances in which the service would not record a death, she said if it involved drug toxicity, the coroner would be notified. Quote, if first responders had attempted to resuscitate a person at a scene and the person died, a coroner would be called. If first responders transported the person to the hospital where they later died, the coroner services would still be notified, she said. She said an exception was if a person was in their home in the area and under a doctor's care when they died, a death through MAID, for example, then the service would not be notified. So maybe there was an ambulance nearby, but it certainly wasn't captured in that photo that everybody turned around and said, see, this is... Yeah. See, again, as we say in French, c'est pas far. That was not a strong moment. Now, Mr. Grizzly, I'd like you to go to about minute 30, 29, I think. And yeah, no, that's about around 29. And we're going to get John Rustad once again talks about another person who died. Now, maybe not died, sorry, but who is having a very tough time I might be remembering
healthcare.
this from memory.
Roughly
Sorry.
1 in 5 British Columbians either don't have a family doctor or can't get in to see one when they need to. And my first question is to you, Mr. Rustad. You've committed to expanding private healthcare delivery. How can you ensure those who can't pay have the same access to the speed and standard of care as those who can?
We are committed to universal health care in British Columbia, where it's one payer, which is the government. Government pays the bill. But we have the second most expensive healthcare system, and we're getting second worst outcomes. We are in a crisis in BC. We're in a crisis. ER rooms are closed all across this province. In the city of Merritt, between now and Christmas, it's anticipated there'll be 32 more days of closure of an ER room. It could take 8, 10, 12 hours or longer to wait for emergency rooms. People have died waiting in emergency rooms. There was a lady. She was in labor. She went into the hospital, and she miscarried in the washroom and sat there covered in blood, waiting for hours for services in an emergency room. That is David Eby's healthcare in BC. And quite frankly, it really tears me apart and it makes me upset. We need to be able to make sure that we're retaining our doctors, that we're bringing back the healthcare workers that were let go. We need to make sure we have a model in this province where doctors want to stay here and work, where people can come in and we can unleash the full potential of family doctors. We need to be able to make sure we deal with training and the people coming into our province. There's so much that needs to be done on healthcare, and it's not happening under David Eby.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rustad. To you, Mr. Eby, third-party delivery exists in Australia, in the UK, in Germany, and it's already here in British Columbia. In coming out so strongly against alternative care models, including privatization, are you putting ideology above the needs of British Columbians?
No, not at all, Shachi. When people need care, we're going to make sure we're doing everything we can to deliver care. That story that John just told is horrific. Every British Columbian deserves high-quality care no matter where you are in the province. People who are, when we weren't hitting cancer treatment timelines, we reached down to Bellingham and we retained a private clinic to be able to make sure that people were getting the care that they need. It's not about ideology. We have a shortage of healthcare workers. We've got to train up more healthcare workers. We've got to recognize the credentials of those healthcare workers who want to work in our province from other parts of Canada, from other countries. We're leading the country in recruiting healthcare professionals. We've got to do more. And I'll tell you, we're not going to get there by cutting the healthcare system. It's John Rustad's proposal. He keeps releasing numbers consistent with cutting billions of dollars from our healthcare system. He hasn't released his costed platform. We got to hire more doctors and nurses. We can't be competing with the private sector who's going to pay those same doctors and nurses more. And then all of a sudden, you have to pay more to access those doctors and nurses. That's why we're opening a new medical school in Surrey to train up community healthcare workers, doctors and nurses to work across BC, incentives for working in rural BC, and provisional license so those professionals can get to work right away.
Thanks, Mr. Eby. Ms. Furstenau, you've described the current healthcare system as a bloated bureaucracy. You're also campaigning on establishing an integrated community health center in every riding in British Columbia. So how exactly do you plan to do that without adding to said health bureaucracy?
Well, the great thing about community health centers is that they don't actually need heavy bureaucracy on top of them the way that UPCCs, the invention of the NDP, do. The NDP seem to have approached healthcare with the idea that there's nothing that one more VP and 7 more project managers can't solve, when in fact what we have to do is ensure that healthcare spending is being focused on the delivery of healthcare by the professionals who were trained to do it, healthcare professionals in our province. We've seen the corporatization of healthcare under the NDP. We've seen the growth of TELUS, Health Plus. They were investigated only because the BC Greens wouldn't relent on asking the questions of why they were allowed to double bill. We've seen the growth of agency nurses. We see that both of these two parties are aligned on corporate delivery of healthcare, whereas with community health centers, you treat it like we treat the public education system. There's the infrastructure, the doctors, the nurse practitioners, nurses, allied health professionals build their team. We have 30 of these operating in BC already. They're hugely successful. We can get 93 up and running because it's the model that we use for our MLA offices. It's totally possible.
Thank you, Ms. Furstenau. Same question to all of you now, starting again with Ms. Furstenau, then Mr. Rustad, then Mr. Eby. Here's your question. The super senior wave is here. People 85 and older represent one of the fastest growing age groups in British Columbia. Options for long-term palliative or in-home care are often limited. Many people have no help. Others can only rely on their children or neighbors. What is your plan, Ms. Furstenau? First, to ensure the dignity and care to those who have given so much to this province.
Yeah, we've had a shortage of long-term thinking. We've had a shortage of governments who look at demographics, who prepare for what's coming, who try to avert crises. And now we are seeing a lot of people, a lot of seniors who aren't getting the care they need. We had the report from the Seniors Advocate, A Billion Reasons to Care, that showed a huge amount of public funding going to especially for-profit seniors care, where that money wasn't being used for delivery of care to seniors. It was being used for administration. It was being used for renovations. And so, number one, we need a government that takes seriously how public money is being used to support seniors, and we need to make sure that that is being used properly. And number two, we have to find ways to support seniors at home. The best place for seniors to age is age in place. And it's horrifying right now, the story that a 95-year-old man has been evicted from his home to a hospital.
Mr. Rustad.
Thank you, and I need to clear the air here. We're going to be adding about $3.8 billion in healthcare spending over the next 3 years. David Eby continues to perpetuate a lie, and I just wanted to be clear on that. When it comes to seniors and what needs to be done with seniors care in this province, we've laid out a very comprehensive plan. Everything from building more long-term care facilities in this province, a commitment of 5,000 new beds, but more than that, we need to work with seniors and we need to work with families to be able to support them at home. That's why we're going to create tax credits that are available. We're going to expand services at home. A nurse came to me in my riding and she told me this story, and she comes home in tears because she's been going out and she's talking to seniors and they're saying, can we please get some help? And she's saying, there's none available. I'm so sorry. That is wrong. Seniors need to be treated with respect. We need to work to be able to support them at home because we know that's where the best outcomes are. There's much more we need to do. We're expanding the SAFER program, shelter aid for elderly residents. There's a lot more that can be done and that we have a plan to be able to deliver.
Mr. Eby.
Well, it's hard to listen to John Rustad. He was in government for 16 years, and seniors who lived in long-term care homes didn't get a bath once a week. The vast majority of long-term care homes didn't meet even minimum provincial standards for care and dignity. And now he says, oh, if you send me back, I'm going to be different this time. I'm not going to cut the healthcare system. I'm not going to fire the workers who care for the seniors. The largest firing of healthcare workers happened when John Rustad was in government, and he voted for it against seniors. You deserve care at home for as long as you can be at home. That's why we've expanded home care. Our Hospital at Home program means you can get hospital-like care at home in BC, the first time in our province. And we've got a lot more to do, but we're meeting standards for seniors in long-term care, and we're going to keep doing that, something John Rustad never did.
So we're throwing to open debate. We're starting with Mr. Rustad. Do you want to respond to what Mr. Eby just said?
I mean, first of all, what David Eby just said is not true.
90% of care homes didn't meet standards,
And
John.
I can tell you something. The care homes that were built and that were renovated in British Columbia were renovated to the standards of the day. They were good quality facilities that were built. But here's the real key in my mind.
For other people,
when you look forward at what needs to happen going forward, David Eby cannot defend the record that he has and the damage that is being done in BC, especially for seniors. Seniors need that respect and care. They can't get a doctor. When an emergency room's closed, does a senior have to go an hour and a half, 2.5 hours down the road for the next one? And that is David Eby's record. We need to make sure that those services are there and available. We also need to make sure that we're coming into their homes, providing support, and working with families to make sure that support's there.
Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, when we were all rolling up our sleeves to get vaccines to protect vulnerable seniors from COVID-19, when Bonnie Henry was working night and day to keep us safe during the pandemic, John Rustad and his candidates were providing donations to people who were protesting outside of hospitals, anti-vax convoy members. He's still an anti-vaxxer. He appeared in front of a group of people that called the so-called, you called it the so-called COVID vaccine. You said you wish you'd never been vaccinated.
That's just not true.
And then when someone said, do you think that public health professionals should be tried like Nazi war criminals? You said, well, we wouldn't do that in BC, but we would support an international effort to do that, John. It's embarrassing. You know, I wouldn't fire Bonnie Henry. I'm trying to hire you and your family a family doctor. We've connected 250,000 people to family doctors. We've got so much more to do. But if you think that we'll be safer in our province with someone who doesn't believe that vaccines work in charge of things?
Thank you very much, Sachi. The reality is I'm triple vaccinated. The reality is in British Columbia, I also promoted and supported people getting vaccines, especially for seniors. Especially for seniors in our communities. I was supportive of that. However, I am not anti-vax. I am anti-mandate. I believe that people should have choice. It shouldn't be thrust upon them and forced upon them or coerced to be able to take a vaccine.
You never know which John Rustad's going to show up. When he's talking to supporters, he says, I regret getting the vaccine tonight. Now he's proud to be
I'll explain that to you if you like.
You never know who you're going to talk to.
I don't expect that these two are door knocking, but I am. And I'm talking to a lot of seniors in Victoria. And what I hear from seniors are the concerns that they have around losing their affordable housing. That is the number one concern I've heard from seniors. And then I hear from seniors who don't have access to primary care. And what these two are not focused on is protecting that affordable housing, protecting that right to live and age in place that seniors want to have after having contributed to our society, paid their taxes their whole life. They want a government that is going to have their back. And that's not what they feel right now. And then they want to make sure that they do have primary care. And what has not happened under the NDP is the solutions to the primary care crisis. UPCCs are twice as expensive as meeting a family doctor, and they do not work to solve this crisis. There's one really important factor. They'll keep talking about we're going to get more doctors. We're going to train more doctors. BC has more family doctors per capita than the rest of the country. They're just not willing to work in this broken system. We want to make a primary public healthcare system that doctors want to work in, that healthcare professionals want to work in, and that will serve the people of BC.
There's a great desire for both these leaders to come back in.
It's clear in my mind that keeping seniors at home as best we can and support them is the right thing to do. In 2022, I lost my father, I lost my father-in-law, and I lost my mother in that year. But we were able to keep them in their home right to the end because we were able to support with family. There was not the level of care, unfortunately, for many, many seniors that are out there to be able to do that. And we know that when seniors can stay in their home, their quality of life is much better. And for me, we were able to provide that quality of life for my parents. But I know many families can't. And that's where we need to be able to make sure we're supporting those families to be able to stay in their homes.
Okay, I'm going to allow you to come back in, Mr. Eby, and I'll give you a little bit more time.
Thanks.
Let him finish that little bit.
Okay.
These are huge challenges that we face in our healthcare system. You know, when John Rustad was in government in 2010, they said, we're going to make sure everyone gets a GP. A GP for me, the program they called it. 5 years later, fewer people had a family doctor than when the program started. We're actually making progress on getting people family doctors. We're supporting you and your family. And we believe in the science of things like vaccines. We don't have a candidate that says the vaccines give you AIDS. We don't support anti-vax convoy members. We believe that science works and it keeps us safe with things like vaccinations.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eby. We're now moving on to...
So it was a long section, but I wanted to present it to you to get an idea of the flow. So you have on the left, Mr. Charisma, John Rustad.
That's sarcasm, by the way, in case anybody didn't catch that.
So now you will notice his intervention earlier. He saw someone die.
Never happened.
Now in this one, talking a story about someone who bleeded out, was bleeding out. Starts with that, right? And you'll notice the difference in the reaction, where David Eby goes, "That's a horrific story," because that one made the news. Then later on in his response, he talks about parents who died. John Rustad keeps on going back to people who died, or people who were all the time. Like, life is so terrible. People are dying. Like, it's a subtle thing. Yes. And it's not, there are still other times so far. And this is all in the first hour that he's made like references to people who have died, who or came close to dying.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This one, he gets a reaction. The first one, he didn't. So do you get the feeling that everybody on that stage was like, oh, God, here he goes again?
Yeah, pretty much.
Over the course of the evening, over the course of this first half, he's the one that brings up the greatest number of anecdotes about people he allegedly met or allegedly talked to or whatnot. Whether these people are real or not, we all have no ways of knowing when politicians do that, right? Unless there was sort of like a picture of them. Then you have David Eby, look this, calm and whatnot, delivering. But then there's like 3 occasions in that whole section where he just like, boom. It wasn't forceful. It wasn't strong. It wasn't fireworks. But if you're listening to what he said, he just like body slams Rustad 3 or 4 times with counters, like actual facts. This 90% of nursing homes, not people not getting enough baths. People just like, and there have been evaluations, their assessment, like these are facts. Because then he goes on them on the whole anti-vax thing where he said he regretted, and you have Rustad going, that's not true. But he's like, yeah, it is true. We all saw the video. And then the Nuremberg 2.0 thing, that's not true. Yes, it is true. You did say that. And you will note his vigorous defense of himself. Hey, that's not true. No, that's not true. Like, he could barely get it. Because you know it's true, girl. Girl, you know it's true. We heard you. I mean,
yeah.
And then you have Sonia Furstenau, and she's been doing this. She was like, I'm watching the debate, and it's the whole first half of it, and it's like, see these two? Like, again, as we've come to expect from Green candidates, substance, plans, things, pointing to specific things that we can do, avenues that we could explore, all that type of stuff, pointing out that, yes, while these other two keep on trying to fight each other on whether or not and whether we should, here's how we could. Right? All you're going to get from that. So, she did well.
Oh, yeah.
She did well. Like, if you're actually listening, right? She did well. But the other thing that like throughout, and there'll be a couple of other moments throughout the debate, David Eby is actually landing huge punches with like no flash whatsoever on Rustad. Did you? And then of course, there's a whole bunch of claims in there that have relative dubiousness. You stopped it at one point, Mr. Grizzly. So there's something that clearly made you go, what?
Well, I was just tired of the guy lied the entire time he was on that stage. If he was speaking, he was lying. I didn't do that. We saw the tape, dude. This person died. No, they didn't. Never happened. The man is incapable of telling the truth. This is what the new conservative movement is. Lie, 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 lie. And when you get called out on it, deny.
Yeah. Whatever makes the best story. I was only joking. Oh, I misspoke. Oh, well, really, it's this. Well, gee, it's like, I can't believe you fact-checked me. You said fact-checking.
Yeah.
Okay. The next section, this one's interesting. It's about opioids and public safety because this guy, Rust, had opened the door. So let's continue on from where we are on the clip here, Mr. Grizzly. This one will not be as long, kids and cubs.
Just a moment. Okay, here we go. We'll bring it up for you.
Which is the opioid crisis and public safety. It has been the better part of a decade since BC first declared a public health emergency.
Hang on a second here. Isn't she from Angus?
Yes.
Reid? Sachi?
Yes, she was the one that torpedoed the federal debate and handed it to Aaron O'Toole.
Right. Okay.
She didn't. So apparently she did. She seems to have learned a little bit, but she still should not be there.
He should not be there.
over drug-related deaths. Since then, more than 15,000 people have died, and on average, between 6 and 7 people die every day. My first question is to Ms. Furstenau. Ms. Furstenau, you plan to continue safe supply. You talk about prevention and reducing stigma, but how do you tell people, especially young people, about the risks of using hard drugs while simultaneously trying to destigmatize?
Yeah, it's really important that young people get good information, they get reliable information. We've seen in programs in the United States, in middle schools, in high schools, where when young people get the information that gives them everything they need to know about the risks and dangers, especially of opioids and hard drugs, there's a 66% decline in use amongst young people. That's what we should be aiming for. The other thing that young people need, and I had a friend of mine who's 18, reading me some statistics this afternoon, saying that girls are saying that their mental health is worse than it's ever been. We need counselors in schools. We need enough EAs in schools. Kids need to feel supported in their schools. Prevention is critical. But it's interesting that David Eby says he listens to Bonnie Henry when it comes to COVID and when it comes to that public health emergency, but he rejects her advice when it comes to this public health emergency that has claimed 15,000 people's lives. There needs to be a regulated pharmaceutical alternative to the toxic drugs that are being distributed by organized crime in our streets, and that's the advice from the provincial health officer to this government.
Okay, that's time. Thank you, Ms. Furstenau. To you, Mr. Rustad. As you know, homelessness and addiction often go hand in hand. You say you'll clear tent encampments. You say you won't hesitate to close overdose prevention sites. Instead, you're focusing on drug-free housing, which currently does not exist at the scale you would need. Won't your policies simply drive more vulnerable people into the streets?
There's no question when you look at this crisis of overdoses and drug addictions in British Columbia, it is horrendous what is happening here. Last year, just over 5,700 people died in Canada. Close to half of those were in British Columbia, 2,500 people in British Columbia alone. Clearly what that means is the policies in this province are not working. If you look at any other province by any other measure, they are performing better than we are in British Columbia. So we need to take a different approach. We need to make sure that we bring an end to decriminalization and safe supply. We need to bring an end to this, to the government being a drug dealer, quite frankly. What we need to do in British Columbia is build out recovery. And yes, you're right, there is significant investment that's needed, and we're going to make those investments. Everything from doctor-prescribed treatment to short-term recovery to longer-term recovery and to involuntary, compassionate recovery. These are things that need to be done. We're going to build out this capacity. But I'll tell you the story of Christian, who was a 13-year-old, and when he was first addicted and not told by his parents did everything they possibly could to try to get help for him. He eventually passed away when he was 28. And when I talked to the mom said, I asked the government to try to help me and they refused. They didn't even answer the phone.
That's time. Okay, Mr. Eby, thank you. I am going to come back around and invite you to answer the substance of the question. We've heard you on the things that need to be done. I heard that. However, as we pointed out in the question, the capacity that you're talking about does not meet the scale at this time. In closing tent encampments, in closing safe consumption sites and other use sites, are you not driving drug-addicted people back into the streets? Where exactly do you expect them to go? I will give you 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you. We need to make sure that there's three distinct groups. There's those that are down on their luck, there's those that have addictions, and those that have mental health. We need to make sure that we have housing and available for those people that need it and down on their luck. When we have people with addiction, we need to make sure that we deal with detox, get them into a place where we can put them in housing for recovery and make sure we have that. It needs to be built out. And of course, with mental health, we have to make sure those supports are there. And I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to talk more about that in the future.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Eby.
Okay. Right? It's another story of someone who died. Okay. And the fact that he's making a link saying that the deaths show that the program is not working because it can't be possibly the fact that BC is the place in the country where the problem is the largest.
No, that has nothing to do with anything. I mean,
right. the numbers do not reflect the fact that it's the place where the problem is large. As it reflects that what we've done is not working, he concludes. Yes. And notice that the new term for putting people in recovery against their will is now been rebranded as involuntary compassionate recovery.
Isn't that just locking people up and throwing away
Sounds
the
like
key
you're gonna
so you don't have to see the problem anymore?
Sounds like you're going to get a massage.
Mm-hmm. Involuntary compassionate care.
Recovery. Yes. They have so much fun with words, don't they?
Fun with flags.
Yeah. Let's keep going in that section. You'll notice again that Mr. and Miss Firstenow again had a substantive answer.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go.
I know he's bad. He's really bad.
7 years your government has been in power. People around British Columbia have seen their communities scarred by the toxic drug and mental health crises. Tent cities and street crime have become common. How do you respond to those who say your policies, including the experiment to decriminalize public drug consumption, have only made things worse?
Yeah, this is a really awful crisis. I listened to the story of Christian and the struggle of his parents to get him support. Anyone who's lost a child or a parent or a loved one or a friend, and there are so many people, there are very few people who haven't been directly affected by this, knows the scale of the human tragedy and that it's urgent. And it's led us to try things that were unimaginable at certain points. Who would have imagined that there would be an all-party committee and the police chiefs lining up say, let's try decriminalization. Let's try removing stigma so that people can come forward and ask for help. They don't worry about getting arrested or losing their job. And so we tried it, and it didn't produce the results that anybody wanted. Instead of people feeling like they could come forward, people struggling with brain injuries, mental health issues, and addictions felt like they could use drugs anywhere in the province. So we had to change course. This is a hard problem. It won't be solved with simple slogans. We got to do that. We actually need to take on this problem head on. We have opened hundreds of new treatment beds. We're providing support for youth like Christian, Vancouver Island, the Orca-Lalem site. We've got so much more to do. And we'll do everything it takes to make sure that we're supporting people in recovery however we can.
Thank you, Mr. Eby. Same question to all of you. Throughout this campaign, you've been largely focused on what to do once toxic drugs are already in our communities. To each of you, what is your plan to address the role of organized crime and the constant flow of drugs through our ports and other places? We begin with Mr. Rustad, then Mr. Eby, finally Ms. Firstenow.
Thank you. There's no question in my mind that our ports are wide open. The German report has said that less than 1% of containers in the British Columbia are actually checked. The federal government exited the scene in 1997, and the problem has only gotten worse under David Eby. And I suggested, and I still move forward, the plan that we are going to strengthen our port police. We're going to actually make sure that that force is there and available to be able to do that work. David Eby said, oh, you can't do that, it's federal. Watch us. We're going to make sure that we crack down on these ports. We're going to bring an end to the organized crime, the drugs and the guns that are coming through our ports. We're going to help work.
Okay, where have we heard this line of bullshit before?
Pierre, with the auto theft. We'll scan all the containers. Well, like, do you know how many scanners and how many people and how many man hours and how?
So do you know why? Do you know?
Hold on, just
recently,
before you go on. And then what they did, as soon as he mentioned that, then they moved to another system where they were just scratching the VIN numbers of the cars. So I mean, it's not like they won't get around that, right?
You do realize recently that CBSA, Canada Border Services Agency, you do realize that recently, because they are frontline workers, they can't strike. So instead, what they did was they worked to the letter of the law.
Right.
That is, every person on every plane went to secondary. Every piece of luggage was checked. Every vehicle at the border was checked thoroughly, top to bottom. They got their raise within a day. You know why? Because to do their job 100% to the letter of what they have to do will hold up about $10 billion worth of trade a day. So what he's suggesting would cost us hundreds of billions of dollars. Because to check all of those containers, I'm sorry, it's going to take days, which means no trade moves. You
Or
have to accept and understand that crime is going to happen because people want money.
yes.
And because greedy corporations don't pay enough, people are willing to take bribes and payoffs and a little bit of cash here and there just to get ahead a little bit in life. This is why crime exists.
Mhm. And if the person buys enough scanners and hires enough people to do all that job without holding up trade. Yes. Hello, big bloated government program that
Yeah.
you guys say you don't believe
You
in.
can't
And,
hire
and
these
again,
people. You
and
can't
then
do it.
and if they do their business the way that Doug Ford does business, that contract for all those scanners that they'll have to buy will surely need some scrutiny.
Yeah. It's just none of this makes any goddamn sense.
No. This is like tough talk. But not that sounds good, but it's not a solution. This is
There's
not
no
a solution.
practicality to it. Okay.
With the federal government to strengthen our borders right around, we're going to do everything we can to actually even go after the components that go into making these drugs so that we can get these dangerous drugs off our streets. They're killing people on a regular basis. This needs to happen, and a Conservative government's going to make sure that we put the resources there to end our ports being wide open and to bring an end to this crisis.
Mr. Eby.
Thanks, Shachi. You know, again, difficult to listen to John Rustad on this critically important issue of organized crime in our province. You know, when John was in government, gangsters brought hockey bags full of unmarked bills to BC casinos. They laundered money with impunity. They used our court system to enforce those same gambling debts. The government had no interest in taking that on. And now John Rustad has actually announced that he's not even going to enforce federal gun laws in British Columbia. He's going to direct the police, and this isn't just one time or twice, it's 3 times, including in the radio debate we participated in. He will direct the police not to enforce federal gun laws that prevent abusers from accessing guns, that prevent gangsters from buying and selling handguns and semi-automatic weapons. It's ridiculous. And now he says he's going to get tough on crime. Give me a break. John, you have to go with the gangsters. You have to take their cars and their houses and their guns and enforce the law, and that's what we're going to do.
Ms. Furstenau.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the problems we have is that people are being abandoned to homelessness. There isn't solutions for them. Mayors are asking the provincial government, have been asking the provincial government to step up and play the role that they're supposed to play, to have a social safety net, to ensure that people aren't living outside and gathered in an area where it's very easy for organized crime to find them and to sell them substances that are very dangerous and often deadly. We have an example in Duncan. 4 years it's been operating. It's been a proven success model. It's the village site. It gets people into homes. It gets some wraparound services. It gets some connection, belonging, community, employment, and it keeps them away from organized crime. This is what should be scaled up everywhere in this province. This is how we solve this crisis.
Thank you. And now time for open debate. Mr. Eby, we'll start with you.
Okay. Where to begin? Good God. I like her.
Furstenau?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like her. I think she's got her shit together and has things organized and planned out to a certain degree. Eby, he's not terrible, but he's got some issues he's got to work through, and Rustad is just a blithering idiot.
But you will notice in that section when Eby was talking, we tried something, it didn't work. We course corrected.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do.
But also, the admission, we tried something, it didn't work. Rather than defending it or going to the wall or justifying or just a straight up, listen, this problem is big. We have to try stuff. Not everything's going to work. But if we don't try, and right, that's not a common thing for a government to say. We tried something, it didn't work. That's usually not the government play. So I heard that and it's like, you know what? That's actually refreshing. I was okay with that as an answer.
Yeah.
I know.
I just don't understand how things got to be so simply bizarre in this country when it came to formerly centrist, little right-leaning but centrist progressive conservatives. That there's no more progressive conservatives in this country. There's none.
No.
There's no party representation. I'm sure there are progressive conservative thinking and leaning individuals throughout the country, but there's no party of that nature in this country anymore. It's completely gone.
Well, they're NDP parties now.
Yeah, and out west,
How can you?
Manitoba NDP is a joke mark conservative, period.
And it looks like the Saskatchewan NDP is as well.
Well, so I'd say the same thing in Alberta as well.
Right.
So the Conservative Party, the conservative movement in this country has gone so far to the right that they're almost circling back, but they haven't gone far enough yet. I just don't know, where is this bizarre thought process and behavior coming from? Is it the influence of somebody like Trump?
He opened the door. He created a permission structure, that's for sure.
I think that's what it is. So they're like, let's see how crazy we can be.
Well, it's one of those things in the conservative model, right? They see a conservative party either in the UK, usually, this, or the United States, have great success with something. And then they, rather than come up with original ideas of their own, they just decide to just cut and paste and see if it'll work here. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But if all of this sounds familiar to you, it's because it's the same constants. It's just different variables. But it's like, he talked about securing our border. Where did you get that?
Yeah.
Gee, I wonder where I heard that from. Right?
How soon before they say, we're going to start deporting? How soon before that comes up?
Oh, I'm sure it's coming.
No doubt. And then consider that how our farms will have crops rotting in the fields because there's nobody there to pick them.
Yep. Indeed. Let's go to 4840, because there's one other thing I'd like to show this morning.
Well, we're already way past that. We're at the 52 minute.
Oh, then keep going. Sorry, I keep going to 5639 then.
Okay.
Oh, then we probably actually saw that point. Actually, you know what? You don't need to keep going, actually, because I saw that. When John Rustad was brought on to the dealing with organized crime, so far in the debate, that was the part where he was strongest in terms of like things that he was, the ideas were crazy, but, and won't work. I should say crazy, impractical. It won't work. But he was delivering it and he was solid, whatnot, and the people who like that kind of stuff would be eating up. And then you notice that David Eby comes back on top of it, on a topic that Rustad was supposed to own, and just demolished what he said about it. So it's like, here you go. Like, I could see this, like, it's like, oh yeah, this is my subject. I got this. Let's go. Okay, let's go to 5670 then. I'll do this one. The section on Indigenous relations, because the other big sort of scandal,
56 what?
56. Oh, 50. No, 50. How did I get 5670?
Yeah, that's not a thing.
That's not a thing. All right, I'll give you
5710.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really weird. Because one of the, I guess, the scandal, or the oh my God, looking back in the moments, is that Rustad mentioned that he would remove BC's adherence to UNDRIP principles. So yeah, I think it's probably like 5640 is what I meant to put instead of 5670. I apologize. 56 minutes and 70 seconds. Yay.
That's 5710.
With Indigenous rights and land use.
Counselors there for kids when they need them.
Leaders, I do have to keep us to time, and that is time for this section. Our next theme deals with Indigenous rights and land use. Earlier this year, the province paused amendments to the Land Act, which would have shared decision-making powers with First Nations. The first question is to you, Mr. Eby. Your proposed Land Act changes have faced criticism over impacts on individual land rights, treaty negotiations, and major resource developments, including those supported by First Nations. If you win this election, will you again attempt to amend the Land Act?
No, we won't, Sonia. And the reason is that we need to make sure that we have the confidence of British Columbians in doing this critically important work. We can't spend a bunch of money on lawyers fighting Indigenous people in court all the way through to the Supreme Court of Canada and back and forth. We're not ending up any further ahead. It brings uncertainty, it brings a loss of investment, and it brings a lack of improvement in conditions for First Nations people in the province. We've got to work in partnership. I'm very frank about that, because I know that when we work with Indigenous people, we lift the conditions for Indigenous people across the province in BC, but we also improve the lives of the regions around them. And so when I think about mining, for example, in the Northwest, the Tahltan, major mine under construction right now, 1,800 jobs. It's a cooperative partnership between the Tahltan and the mining company. That's the future in the province, not fighting in court. And what John Rustad is doing, spreading division. Some of the candidates openly racist to Indigenous people, denying the history of residential schools. Paul Ratchford in my own constituency on Orange Shirt Day saying he won't wear an orange shirt because he won't misrepresent Canadian history. These are the kind of candidates he's running. We don't need division. We need to work together.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eby. To Mr. Rustad, the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act was passed by all parties 5 years ago. You say you may repeal it. Is that for certain? Be specific. Under what conditions would you do so?
Thank you, Sachi. When we look at British Columbia and we look at First Nations in British Columbia, they've been held back economically for far too long. We need to be able to unleash their potential. We need to make sure that they can fully participate in the economy. We make sure that economic reconciliation can be a reality. And I've witnessed this firsthand as I signed 435 agreements with First Nations. I witnessed this firsthand when I see the difference it makes to people on the ground and to what's going on in our province. And so my perspective on this, and our Conservative Party looks at British Columbia, working with First Nations, lifting them up, making sure that we can help fulfill those opportunities for them. And when there is legislation in place that creates friction between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, I think that's wrong. That is not reconciliation. So we need to be able to move beyond that. When you look at the debate in the UN on the United Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, we want to bring that to life in terms of how we work with First Nations. You look at the debate, you look at the intention, that's how we will utilize UNDRIP in British Columbia. DRIPR legislation, the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People Act, has caused friction in this province, and it needs to be replaced with what makes sense so that we are not creating the divisions amongst people, but instead we're making sure that both Indigenous and non-Indigenous life have the opportunity to be able to fully participate and benefit from a growing and expanding economy.
Thank you, Mr. Rustad. To Ms. Furstenau, your platform says Indigenous governments have decision-making authority over their lands. But how do you reconcile this when economically independent First Nations who want to log old-growth forests, or they want to support pipeline projects?
Yeah, well, for so long in this province, these are the only options that have been given to First Nations, and the kind of economic reconciliation that John Rustad is talking about are the benefits agreements that he entered into with First Nations that were colonial and paternalistic, that identified how the money could be spent if those proceeds went to First Nations, that ensured that First Nations couldn't criticize a project, that ensured that the people of those nations couldn't speak out. What we need is to recognize that the courts have been telling governments across Canada, and especially here in BC, that rights and title for First Nations exist, and the courts have been directing governments to do the work to sort that out at a negotiating table, not, as David said, spend millions and tens of millions of dollars on legal fees, fighting battles that the provincial government always loses, because the courts have been consistent on this, and the courts want governments to create certainty, to create consistency, and to ensure that we're doing the hard but essential work of reconciliation with First Nations.
Thank you, Ms. Firstino. And now the same question to all of you, beginning with Mr. Eby. Time and again, the courts have ruled in favor of Aboriginal titles. So when you, as Premier, are in a situation where you are negotiating over what to do with Crown land, which is considered public land, whose interests are you prioritizing?
Well, that's a critically important question, Shachi. Thank you. And the best way I can describe it to you is to talk to you about the agreement we did with the Haida people. You know, recognizing Haida title, everybody knew the government wasn't going to win in court. Haida have been there since time immemorial. They've got their own governance. They've been looking after different functions. And so when we entered into an agreement with the Haida, it was to make sure that we were sitting down as partners at a table with shared responsibility. We're going to work it out. We're not going to go to court. And that's what we did. That's how we got to an agreement with the Haida. And you know, when we went to the legislature, John Rustad stood up, he looked in the eyes of the Haida elders, and he said, yes, this is the right thing to do. I went and I talked to the Attorney General. We never were going to win in court. But then as soon as he got outside the legislature, he hit social media, he said, hey, the Haida are coming for your private property. A total lie, a total fiction, and an example of the kind of divisive politics that our province does not need.
Ms. Firstino.
Well, it's really critical that we create certainty in this province, that it's long-term, and that we recognize, again, what the courts have indicated for us to do and what government should be doing. To politicize this the way that the Conservatives did, and to really not do the work properly, because the NDP did not work with the people of BC, did not demonstrate that. But when you ask whose interests on Crown land are being protected, for so long in this province, Crown land has been handed over for resource extraction by industries, and they have extracted enormous wealth. They have extracted our resources. They have come in and done boom and bust economics over and over again. And whose interests were not protected were the long-term interests of British Columbians. We now have a devastated landscape. We have so much damage that has come, and the wealth has left our province.
Mr. Rustad.
Thank you very much. When you see economic reconciliation on BC, you see both Indigenous and non-Indigenous be able to prosper. And I'll give you the Haisla, for example. They went from 65% unemployment to 15% unemployment. There's so many nations that have engaged economically that have been able to change lives and make that difference for people. And I think, quite frankly, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous alike want to see that happen on the landscape. I have gone out and I've talked and all the agreements that I've done and seen the difference it makes. And when it comes to Haida, or to the Haida Gwaii and the Haida people, yes, I fully support addressing title. It needed to happen. It's the right thing to do. But private land and infrastructure should never have been put on the table, not without engaging with the people and making sure that you're in a situation. By coming forward and doing it, ultimately you're going to end up with Indigenous law applying to your private property. We need to make sure that everybody's at the table if you want to achieve true reconciliation.
Okay, time now for open debate. Ms. Firstino, we begin with you. Mr. Eby, I see you shaking your head. You may engage once you've had a moment to speak.
Look, it's fascinating to me that John Rustad's vision for this province is one that's rooted somewhere around 1957. I mean, he cannot look ahead because he can only look back. He is so limited in his imagination of what's possible. And when it comes to reconciliation, when it comes to sorting out rights and title, what we have to do, the hard but essential work we have to do, all John Rustad can do is look back to when he was Minister of Indigenous Relations, and what he wanted to do was visit First Nations that had golf courses. He is not seriously taking this issue and recognizing the serious work of a provincial government is not to politicize this, not to make people afraid, but to recognize that to move forward, to create economic certainty, to create economic prosperity for everybody in BC, this issue has to be sorted out.
Well, look, I mean, look at what the Squamish Nation are doing at the foot of the Burrard Street Bridge. You know, this was a reserve property that was stolen from them by the government. The Squamish were kicked off, and that property sat vacant for many years. It was given back by the federal government. What they did was they're building hundreds and hundreds of units of rental housing for the whole community. We all benefit from that. This work actually improves and increases prosperity for everyone. And John wants to say it wants to take something away from you. It wants to take your private property away from you. Nothing could be further from the truth. So there were private property owners from Haida Gwaii, business owners who came to support that because the certainty, knowing the path forward, makes their businesses and their communities more valuable, more prosperous.
Mr. Rustad,
First Nations people are not coming for your backyards.
Thank you. What we need to see in this province is an opportunity for everybody to be able to prosper. There's no question there. That's one of the reasons why, as part of economic reconciliation, we are actually going to look at the strategic the return of land to First Nations people. It needs to happen. This is rights and title. Right title is included. It's Section 35 of our Constitution. So we will be engaging with First Nations, but we want to make sure that what we're doing with First Nations is creating those opportunities for success. I have seen it when I have a young lady that comes to me and says, I'd like to give you a meat offering. And I say, what for? Because you put a program in place that gave me some training. I got my first job. I was living on the street as a single mom. I had my child on the street. I couldn't look after my child. Now I have a job. I'm back doing some training. I have another job. And I just want to say thank you. That is what economic reconciliation is, connecting with people, making sure they have an opportunity to build a future and look after the kids. That's what any parent would want in the province. That's what we need to deliver when we're working with First Nations in BC.
Well, I don't know if I would compare a relationship with First Nations to parent and child. I would compare it as a partnership, as a true partnership. We're working together to build a province here. And when we work together, amazing things happen. You know, some of the most successful projects in this province are joint projects with Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people, and it improves life in the whole community. John, I just can't disagree with you more that your first action would be to repeal a law that just recognizes the rights that we know Indigenous people have in this province. Yeah, why would you pick a fight with Indigenous people as one of your first steps? We got to work together
because
here.
John just wants to take us back to the 20th century. It's where he feels most comfortable. It's where he feels that we should be going. He cannot see a future that's different from the one in the past that he's had. And he cannot see a future that's unlike what the BC Liberals created when he was a cabinet minister in their government. This is a man who lacks imagination, who lacks the capacity to see a better future.
The first thing we'll do as a Conservative government, should we have that honour and the trust of people in this province, is actually to get rid of a lot of the waste and excess that this government is spending money on. They have expanded the budget by 70% and delivered nothing. 7 years and nothing is improved. We need to change course and make sure that we put people first in BC.
Okay, we do have to leave it there and move on to...
Now, before we get into all the Indigenous stuff, nothing says that you've lost a section of the debate than by closing off the section of debate by running to one of your perceived strong points. In this case, if you're conservative, the economy. He had so nothing to say. He had been so totally decimated and destroyed in this section by both of them, especially around the time where you saw the tide a little bit turn, and then David Eby was like really laying into him, and Sonia Furstenau was like nodding her head, that's right, that's right. You've got two saying like this, you're a liar. Like this, one saying it with words and one with every single fiber of her body language supporting what the guy is saying, you're a liar is. And you end that and says, well, you know what we do? You mismanaged the entire economy, so we're going to fix that back and all that misspending. It's like, so you've conceded the point on Indigenous relations, then, sir.
Effectively, yeah.
That was an obliteration. Okay, Sonia, he wants to go back to 1957. He can't imagine a time that's different from the time he's lived in. Those are freaking haymakers.
Mm-hmm.
She pounded the living F out of the guy in that response. And then he's like, notice that when you start talking about reconciliation, you get to the conservatives, they only want to talk about economic reconciliation around resource extraction type thingies, which Furstenau said, yeah, because that's the only problem. That's the only things that you'll let them have. And then he turns to go, he goes, the UNDRIP thing. The act has caused friction. Every law causes friction. because every law allows something and forbids another thing. It's like people who want to, it's like, we can't pass this murder law. Why? Because it's causing friction in society with people who want to commit murder. Every law causes you don't get rid of UNDRIP because there's certain people who don't want to support it, a lot of whom are racist.
Mm-hmm.
As Sonia first now reminded us, as she was trying to interject, these are human rights. Internationally recognized human rights onto which we've signed on through treaty. Not only with Indigenous people, but with other nations in the world, promising that we were going to respect them. I mean, this guy. It was... none of this is flashy. None of this is fireworks. Right? It's not like, you, sir, had a choice. Right from that... But it's like, he wants to go back before the 2000s?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this one you had to sit and pay attention to. Because this is literally the biggest amount of punches, direct punches to the face I've seen in a debate. And it's all done with such Canadianness.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's not dramatic. People aren't yelling. People aren't screaming. People are making big dramatic. But that's just the first hour. That's all the punches Rustad took in the first hour.
Yeah, I don't see how he's electable.
There's another hour and a half.
Yeah, I don't see how the man is electable. I mean, if anybody in BC watched that and said, well, I was voting Conservative up until last night. I mean, the guy's got a party of loons, and we need to revamp. But the problem is, and we've talked about this in the past, and I'll bring it up again, is that because the atmosphere has become so toxic that good people, do not want to expose themselves to this lunacy. So the people who are vain and narcissists are rising to the top in political parties and entering into politics. And of course, we've got the religious right zealots who are getting in at the committees, school boards. They start there, and then they get into the city politics. And as they get a little bit more seasoned, they work their way up to provincial and then finally into federal. Bad people are trying to do bad things to everybody. And I don't know how we get more people to understand that.
Yep.
And you know why these people are in politics? It's because they're narcissists. They're vain. They don't give a shit about anything but power. They don't want to govern. They want to rule. And because of that, the worst members of our society are rising to the top because good people can't expose themselves to that crap. There's still some good people there, but there's so many more bad faith actors. And how we can inform more people of this and get people out and doing democracy, getting out, voting, letting other people know this is what is happening right now in our country. There are people who want to turn us into Gilead. And I know I sound alarmist, and I know I sound almost conspiracy theory driven, but I'm not. These are facts. They're bad people that are getting into positions of power who will do bad things to all of us. So, geez, bless, get informed, stay informed, inform everybody. Share this program. Let people know that if you don't get up off your duff and get active and make a difference, you won't be able to eventually. They will rob you of that. And on that note, I have to go.
All right. Do we have like 3 or 4 more minutes, Mr. Grizzly?
No, my dog is doing the happy pee dance right now. I got to take her out.
All right. And I saw the comments in the chats that Rustad is reminding everybody of Bueller.
Yes.
Bueller.
Ben Stein.
Ben Stein. All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We appreciate when you do. If you do not want to miss an episode, you do not have to. Thanks to the Ray Girl, who sponsors our pod page. That's podpage.com/The True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you go there and click on subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. Now, if you would like to support us in other ways, then you need to make like Kit Elaine and surf yourself on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where you will find our buttons like, share, and subscribe. And while you're there, you can make like Kit Cassie and click them all. That makes us very happy. It really does. And it helps us very much to help us with monetizing our efforts over here so that we can keep on bringing this product to you. Now, if you would like to help us in other ways when it comes to monetization, then that QR code that's by Mr. Grizzly's head will bring you to our Ko-fi page where you will find our tip jar. And we ask you, if you could, and if you have the means to, and the want and the will and the inclination, to please generously donate. Well, there you go. Someone scanned the QR code. Thank you so very much. Really appreciate that. Everything that you donate goes back into the show, of course, and helps us bring this product to you. We have incurred some fees, of course, online subscriptions and other things, new equipment that we need to buy, time to get in. We both bought new computers within the space of the last year. So to be able to have more reliable performance and that type of stuff. So anything that you can contribute to that really helps us out immensely, and we appreciate it. Now, if you're not able to contribute financially, that's quite all right. It really is, because the gift of your participation and of your attention are the ones that matter the most to us, and we do love to hear from you. So please write to us at truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, on our Twitter feed at TrueEager, our Facebook page, True North Eager Beaver, or if you happen to be listening on YouTube, we have a comment section right down below. Leave us some few words. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, what you think we can do better, what you want more of. If there's any topic specifically today that resonated with you, let us know what you think about it. We're really interested. Because democracy is something that you do, kids and cubs, remember early voting has started in British Columbia and will be going on for the next 4 or 5 days until the 2 days after Thanksgiving, till the 16th, I believe. But nothing will be open on Thanksgiving Day for you. And that early voting, I believe, the first early voting day in New Brunswick, I believe, is on the 12th. So tomorrow, and then the second one is on the 15th. If you need to get there to vote early. And those elections will be October 19th and 21st, respectively. So 8 days till the BC election results. That campaign seemed really, really, really short. Mm-hmm. Almost like too short. I thought campaigns were supposed to be at least like 32 days or something, and I don't think this one was. Provincial rules must be changed and must be different in British Columbia. But please remember to go out to vote. And thank you to Kit Miss, who said during the chat, honestly, just listening to you two talk in the background while I'm doing so many things at once is truly a godsend. It's keeping my mind focused instead of worrying. And our love to Mateo, because he's not feeling well. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom?
I think I'm all out today, honestly. Just share this with everybody you can. Put this on your socials. Let people know they need to be informed, especially our friends in BC who are about to go to the polls. So share this with them so that they can see what they have to choose from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And no, Kitsasi, I'm not related to Weird Al, even though there were a lot of songs today. But I wish. Everyone, have for those of you who are observing, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And Mr. Grizzly, I'll have a very, very, very quick Easter egg when we come back. But please, cue the cock. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. Okay, some very quick information. The jobs data has come in, and the unemployment rate has dropped to 6.5% a little bit, with about 47,000 new jobs being created. The U.S. numbers were good as well. That might have an impact on the Bank of Canada's interest rate decision to come down on the 23rd. A lot of people were expecting a cut of 0.5. The stronger job numbers may encourage them to go a little smaller. We'll see what happens there. And yesterday, big news in the sporting world, but the King of Clay, the man who has won the French Open's singles title a record 14 times, winning 112 of his 116 matches at Roland Garros. Four-time U.S. Open champion, Australian Open and Wimbledon, twice Wimbledon winner, Olympic singles and double gold medalist, 4 Davis Cup finals, Rafael Nadal has announced his retirement from tennis. He will retire in November. Roger Federer said, "What a career, Rafa. I always hoped this day would never come." So, Federer's retired. Nadal's retired. Once Djokovic does, Murray's retired. Once Djokovic does, that's the end of the era of the Big Four.
Yeah. Alrighty. I gotta go.
Have a terrific weekend, everyone.